Good morning, everybody. This is Stacy with our DMO Pro Zoom. And speaking of events, we were just talking about doing some sourdough events. We had mentioned this a couple weeks ago about managing the energy at an event. And I thought, I think this could, use some more conversation for all of us because there's a little bit of confusion sometimes that can come with events, especially when you're hosting with multiple team, right? Of like who is inviting, who comes, like who do they go to as a customer if they order that night, kind of what are the roles and responsibilities at an event. And so just know that everybody's team has kind of a different feel for that and maybe some different kind of rules. So the best thing is to communicate. You got to find out in your area, if you guys are reps on different teams, that you come together, one team, one mission, and kind of discuss it, talk it out, and who's going to be doing events and kind of what not just the flow of the events, but kind of the ethics of the event, let's say, if that's the word I want to use. So I've always lived in a place where there really wasn't anyone else doing events. Only one time, and for spurts, there was somebody else there with me. So honestly, I haven't had to deal with this a lot. So that's the good thing about moving to a new place where there's nobody else doing Juice Plus. Or if you're in a place and you say, there's nobody else doing Juice Plus, there's some good things about that, because if you do the events and you build, eventually everybody's underneath you, right? Everyone's on your team. So as the top person in that area, everybody's on your team. You win from everybody's activity. So you don't have to worry as much about that. Like everyone really would be sort of on your team, but then they're going to be sidelined to each other. So this discussion applies to anything, but don't ever discount it if you say, I moved to some place and there's nobody doing Juice Plus. If we are moving again, if someday we move again, I will look for a place that has nobody doing Juice Plus, because then there's no interference and then everything ends up under you. So it can be a good thing, but it's also great to have people to do events with, because it can get lonely being the only person there and no other sideline leaders. So let's just talk about a couple of different ethics, if we want to call them, just smart practices to keep the people in your community happy. So there are going to be times where you work together as a team and you guys do a bigger event where maybe you host a speaker to come in. Maybe it's a national marketing director that comes in to do some training. Maybe and that's kind of the great thing about having multiple sidelines, is now you have multiple teams to like reach into their people that do these health lectures, and they've got different connections, right? So tap into that as well. People that do that, they like to come in and help an area and help them grow and help support people. So having different teams on different legs or different sideline buddies, they're going to have different connections than you. So it's beneficial to connect with them and play well, right? If we don't want these events to be awkward, then we need to not make them awkward. And often that's going to be setting it up ahead of time to where there's clear expectations. So let's not talk so much about those bigger events where everyone's doing, because I think those are kind of in top leadership circles where they're hosting those bigger events. But let's talk more about, let's just say, a simple wellness presentation, but you're wanting to team up with some sideline buddies, right? So there's other people in the area. You want to combine efforts. Hey, let's all invite to this. So choosing a location, that would be your first step. Where do we want to do this event? Is there a public place that you guys want to do this event? Who's got connections to who? Is it going to be at somebody's house? Who likes to host? If somebody hates hosting, it may not be the best to host at their house if it totally stresses them out. Like, I like hosting. I like having people over. I don't get stressed if everything's not perfect. It's just come on in. And actually, I think people connect better with that than everything having to be perfect, right? Like, nobody else is perfect and you're not, and they're going to relate more to that. So it's not about perfection. It's just about having people over. So kind of letting go of that, but decide whose house are we going to be hosting this event at, and then who's inviting. So are we all inviting? Is it just that person's event and I'm just going there to help them with that event? Or if you say, hey, I'll show up. Do you mind if I invite a couple of people. If you're coming to somebody's house, always and you're plugging into their event, then you're always going to ask, is it okay if I invite a couple of people? Because they may have limits of how many people they can have at the house, right? Or at their location. So choosing that location, who's inviting, is it okay if I invite? How much room do you have? And then what can you do or pitch in to help? Like, is there something that needs to be brought? What item can I bring? Can I get there early? Show up early to help clean up, to set up, stay afterwards to help clean up. It's just nice to have extra hands there at an event. And I will always take extra hands. There's a lot of conversations that happen that I can't be right in those conversations, right? Because there's a bunch of people there. And if we're all inviting to that event, everyone's kind of talking to their own people after that event is over. So it's nice to have other reps there asking, does that rep that's hosting, the host really needs to make it clear who's going to be sharing their story and to ask specific people and kind of go over that story with them, right? Like we love to hear people's stories, but if somebody takes a really long time telling their story and they tell all the detail, then don't choose them at the event until you've had some time to work on them, because they will take up all the time and it's not the time or place for that type of story. So handpick and then make it clear. I've already asked 3 people tonight to share their stories, and so that people don't think they're just going to get called on randomly either. That's helpful as the host to let everyone know who's going to be sharing their story. Just kind of work that ahead of time. I'm really bad about that. I'll forget that side of it, and then I'll just say, Shelly, can you share your story with us? And usually I've already talked with her, or I've just had her share her story to where I know she's okay. But I'm not going to have a brand new person who's kind of unsure about things, right? Like you don't want them planting doubt in their conversation at the event. So that's part of the energy of that event. People show up, you're happy, you're excited, you're greeting people, you're welcoming them. And if somebody does ask you to share your story, be real with your story, but don't plant little seeds of doubt, like saying things like, I thought it was expensive, or I wasn't sure if I could afford it, but then I found a way. I mean, that's just a little seed of doubt in somebody's mind that they're like, oh yeah, maybe it is expensive. Or I think it's expensive too. But you could say, I found Juice Plus to be a very affordable solution for our family. So you're saying sort of the same thing, but you're planting the positive in there first. And that's what you're wanting to do. So really make sure if you're going to be sharing your story that you've got it down, that you're succinct about it. It's not so shallow that it's 3 sentences. Just, I heard about Juice Plus. It made sense to me because, and what I love about it. Like that's fine for some things, but at an event, you want a little bit more detail, but it can't be a super long story. Like 3 to 5 minutes at the most. Okay, so work on your story if you're going to be sharing, or work with the people that are going to be at the event sharing their story so that it's powerful, that it's impactful, that it's connective, that it's relatable, right? That's what we want those stories to be. So not so generic that nobody's going to connect with it, but not so specific that only one person in the room would relate. So more about how you're feeling, how it's changed your life, the thankfulness that you have, the changes that you've seen, how it's given you back energy to do the things you want to do, and, that sort of thing with your stories. So the other part at an event, I would say, is you make sure you've got order forms out, right? Like you're not going to get orders if you don't ask for order forms. And I think it was Jason Dorsey at the last conference we were at in Indianapolis. He said, who likes to ask for the sale? Who likes to ask for somebody's money? And I raised my hand just like, yeah. And then there were like 3 other people in the whole room. And I was like, oh, I don't know if maybe that wasn't right. And he said, yeah, most people don't, but the people that just raised their hand, guess what they're called? And I think he said rich, and everyone laughed about it. But it's true to some degree. If you can't ask for the sale, if you can never get to the point where you say, I would love to help you get started, then how are you going to get the order? You have to direct them to that. They have to know, how did they place this order? So it's an easy one at an event. You pass out the order forms, and I'll just say something like, Okay, I know some of you are ready to get started and asking me, how do you order this? So let me just explain it to everyone. And then I pass out the order forms as I'm saying that. So I'm not just giving it to one person. Again, it's the assumption of like, there are other people in this room that want to get to order, and I'm not going to just point those out. So everybody gets an order form. And if you're already a rep, you don't have to say, oh, I already take that, I don't want the order form. Just take the order form and start looking at it, because nobody else in that room that they don't know you, they don't necessarily know that you're a rep, right? So seem interested as well. And then as far as going over the order forms, remember, people will order what you order. So I say, let me just kind of walk through the order form with you. First is the quad. That's the fruit, vegetable, and berries, and the omegas that we talked about. So the red, green, orange, and purple, that's all of them. That's what we take. And then I'll just kind of walk down the list. And then when we get to the complete, I say, this is what I take. This is how I use it, during the week, and so on. Okay. So they're going to order what you recommend, most likely. And I don't start with the smallest price point. Always start with what you recommend the most. And why do we recommend them on the quad and the shakes first? It's not just because we get more points and more money for it. That's true because they're ordering more products. But the truth is, the more you flood your body with the good, the better results they're going to have, and the faster they're going to see those changes, right? So if they're just taking the Duo or just taking the berry capsules, I don't know what results they're going to get. I don't take that. So I can't say how long it will take them to notice a change. And I don't have research on just the berries only, right? Like, it's good. It's something. It's better than nothing. But I would say at that point, their belief isn't strong enough to hold the weight of the payment. So work on the belief versus just getting the order. So if they just say, I'm just going to order the berry capsules, afterwards, I'll say, okay, tell me, what led to that decision? And then let them talk. And then you want to further educate them and say, I'm glad you're doing the berries. Just know I don't really have research on just the berries. I take these for these reasons. Reiterate why. If money is an issue, then just talk about that. What can they shift in their budget? You're helping them to overcome objections, but you want them to get on as many products as they can, because they will see a change faster. And when they see a change, like if they're just on the berry capsules, they may not notice a difference at all. So in 4 months, when it's time to reorder, will they reorder if they don't notice any difference? Their belief still isn't very strong, right? So I would say I would rather hold off on them ordering until their belief is stronger, or we can work it into their budget or whatever that is, versus them just getting on one product. Now, if they just go with the Duo, I've seen really great things happen with the Duo in people's lives. And then they end up adding the berries, and then they end up adding the omegas as they keep coming to the events. So that's fine if that's what they can do. I mean, just work with them, right? But remember, they're more likely to order what you're ordering and what you recommend. So be bold with that, be confident with that, lead them forward in that, and then let them make the decision. Don't make that for them by assuming they can only afford something and then just share just that one option with them, right? Like, we want to really strongly recommend what we take, and knowing why you take those things are important. What are the benefits that you see from that? So I would say that's another really important aspect to managing the energy of that, because here's what's great. When you pass out the order forms and then people start saying, asking some questions, and then they start ordering, then other people see that. And that's like social proof that I'm not crazy to think that this would be a good thing to invest in. And so if they start seeing others, and it's not like FOMO, a fear of missing out, it's more the social proof side of things, like other things like people are ordering this. Or think about on a website, if you've ever been to a website and it pops up and it says, Susan Briggs from, Alabama just placed her order, right? And you're like, oh, she placed her order. Like, even subconsciously, you're like, other people are ordering this too. See, they like it. I have good taste. It's kind of that same thing. And so you'll see other people, getting excited about it and wanting to order. So that's why it's important to do the order forms. I like to pass it out, and then I like to explain it to them. And then at that point, I say, okay, we're going to go into the kitchen and we're going to make some smoothies. We talked about those, and during the presentation, I'll say we're going to make the smoothies here in a minute. So then I go to the kitchen, and that kind of takes the pressure off, right? So that I'm not just standing there waiting for them to fill out their order forms. And it's great if you have other team members there, they can already be making the smoothies. They can bring out the smoothies and have them try it. Or if they want to come and see you, in the kitchen and watch you do it, that works if it's a smaller group. But then that really kind of breaks up the kind of the presentation side of it. Everyone's not just sitting there. Now we're kind of into little groups. And then I'll just say, we're here to answer questions. If you guys have something specific, bring me into the conversation. I'd like to help. And then you'll see them ordering, looking at their order form. And then I kind of just go around. If I'm not having to make the smoothies, I'll say, okay, tell me what you're looking at. What are you thinking about tonight? And then they'll show you the order form. They're like, well, I really want to order and I want to get my husband on it. And I've thought about my mom. This would be really good for her. Or I've already talked to my mom about it and she was interested too. That's 3 trios right there. What conversation we're going to have at that point? You might want to do what I do. That would be great. I would love to have you brought into this community. I think you would love us. You're already placing 3 orders. That's an excellent way to get started with our company and with our community. I think I would put the orders under yourself like I do. That's what I do. So again, you're recommending what you do. Would you have the same experience with Juice Plus if you were just a customer? I don't think I would have. Honestly, guys, I don't even know if I would be here if I had stayed a customer. Think about, what have I ordered in my life for 21 years every month? Juice Plus. That's it. Not makeup. How many times have I switched makeup brands? Shoes, whatever, even brands and things that I loved that I don't stay with the same one for 21 years as a customer. But as a team member, I did, as a partner, as somebody that's in the community, that's continuing to learn, that's getting a paycheck, that's paying for my Juice Plus, yes, I've of course have stayed on Juice Plus for 21 years. So they're more likely to stay with you, especially if they're thinking of other people they want to order with. Yes, that's the conversations we have. If they're ordering only berry capsules or only the duo, I'm probably not going to introduce the business to them, right? Because their belief isn't strong enough. If their belief isn't strong enough for them to order, how likely are they to share it with somebody else? Probably not, right? They're thinking it's expensive. But if somebody orders the quad and they order a shake and they order a quad for their husband, their belief is strong. Right there, they're confident about this decision that they just made for this purchase. I bet you they're thinking of other people that they would like to share about. So let's talk to them. Let's share that with them. So keeping that in mind. And I think maybe somebody said, and there have been people, they stayed a customer for years. And I do have customers for years as well. I'm just saying for myself, I don't know that I would have stayed with Juice Plus. I think with my own mindset, I would have ended up switching to somebody else and I would have missed out on all the beauty of this community and this life that it's offered me. So that's where I would say those little conversations are helpful. So let's talk about those little conversations after the order forms are passed out and people are there. Sometimes somebody will get in their head, oh, I had a conversation with someone and I helped them place their order or fill out that order form, so they'll be my customer. No, ma'am. Did you get them to the event? If you didn't bring them to the event, if you didn't invite them to the event, they are not your customer. What if they are your really good friend and they show up at the event because somebody else invited them? That's too bad. You didn't invite that really good friend. Whoever invited them and got them to the event, that's their guest. Okay, that's the easiest way that I can think of. Now, in the conversation, if they say, oh yeah, you ask them, so is this your first experience with Juice Plus? Let's just say you're helping with an order form or you're having a side conversation. And they're like, no, I was, invited by my friend, Stacy, and she's shared with me for a couple of years. You amen them. And you that's awesome. That's so fantastic. I'm so glad you're here. You offer your help. You help them get that order form filled out and you bring them back to the person who invited them. You're connecting them in. Now, what about if somebody says, you've got usually family, we'll keep family with family, but that still needs to be a discussion between you and the host. If they got that person there and they're your sixth cousin or your first cousin, but you never shared with them, that's not fair just to claim them as yours if you never shared. Like, who's the one that has talked to them? If you have a side conversation outside and you invite someone to that event and they say, oh yeah, so and so shared with me 2 years ago, but I just wasn't ready or I just wasn't sure about it. Then you say, oh, that's awesome that she shared with you. I think she's going to be at this event that we're coming to on Thursday night. You should come with us. And then at the event, you say, hey, or even in between there, I would go back and say, let's just say this person's name is Kim. Hey, Kim, I connected with Sally, and she's super excited about coming to the event. I know you have shared Juice Plus with her. I encouraged her to come. Are you going to be coming to the event? And then Kim says, yeah, I'm going to be there at the event. And then awesome, I told her she could come. And so you might want to follow up with her in that meantime. Then it would be Kim's responsibility to go to that person and say, hey, I heard you're coming to the event. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. Okay. So you're trying to connect them back to who did they have the first conversation with? That's fair. Now, ultimately, that customer gets to decide, right? Like, what if they just didn't jive well with you? What if they have a closer friendship with somebody else that they're talking with? They get to decide. Again, don't make it awkward. Be open and just kind of come in with this with an open hand, not like they're mine. And never at an event do you say, did you come because I invited you? Did you come before I invited you? Are you here because you saw, my information on Facebook? Like, that just is so awkward. And I've seen that happen. It's not okay. Like, bigger events where people will put flyers out, you're just doing that for the greater good of the event. And you can have a sign up sheet where people say where they heard about it or who invited them. But please do not go up to every person asking them as they walk in the door, did I invite you? Did you come because the flyer I put up? Like, how weird would that be? And they're like, MLM, network marketing, I'm out. I want nothing to do with this. And I've seen people leave an event because of something like that. Please do not be that person, right? Like, we welcome them. We're excited that they're there. And just trust if the connection was yours, it's going to come back to you, right? Like, if the conversations were strong and you had a great connection with them, that's going to come back to you. Let that flow and naturally happen. Always amen the person that first shared with that person. Try to connect them back. But sometimes they may say, no, I don't really connect well with her, or maybe she's not even in the business anymore. Like, who knows? Then you can take them on and help take care of them. But just because you help somebody fill out an order form does not mean that's your customer. Now, if they just randomly heard about it, I don't know. That just doesn't happen. People don't just show up that nobody invited them. So just trust if somebody got them there, then that's fair to help them with the order and bring them back to the person that invited them. So I hope that kind of brings some clarity with that. But I guess, again, in the end, the customer always gets to decide who are they most comfortable with. But on the other side of it, who invited them, who brought them to the event. So that's kind of some of the information I had that I wanted to share with you guys, but I haven't been able to read what's in the chat. You guys tell me, have there been any issues? Have you ever been in a situation where it was just kind of awkward? How did you guys resolve that? What do you do with your co-ops to make sure that things run smoothly and things don't get awkward? I would love to hear from some of you guys. What do you guys have to say?
I'll go quickly. The few events that I've had with my upline, she's come to Maine and she's been amazing because she's set, like you said, set it all up beforehand and just asked. She's delegated, what can you bring? So everything was lined up before, like you just stated. So I think that's the best and most helpful way because it keeps everyone knowing, it's just everyone knows what to do, what their part is. So
Thank you. Anyone else?
I was going to say that it's, I love what you said about, crossover, because there's a lot of crossover in towns, right? That I know a lot of reps that are on other teams that I have spoken to their customers, and then those reps have signed up that customer. So I think having that conversation with the other leaders in the community. We have a large co-op here in Phoenix, and just sharing with them and saying, look at, and coming to that decision together, that if for some reason they didn't end up buying from you, then, you know, this was a good way. I mean, I had one of my reps, thank goodness, sold to my brother. So, you know, and that was fine with me. But I always try to keep families together, and I always try to keep whoever, like I put a ad in to my neighbor and I said, invite your baseball team of moms. And so there was another rep there, but all of my customer that I asked her to invite the baseball reps team, they were expecting for me to sign them up, not the other rep. So I think that's important. And it's not even like what happens in your town. I had a young girl that I kind of helped all through her life since she was 3. And she ended up becoming a nurse and marrying a doctor. And she was in a hospital, and one of another rep on another team, I even called corporate about it. She said that she's been bugging her in the hospital to be on her team. And she was crying on the phone with me. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, Lita. And I said, you just do what you need to do, and I will be there to support you. I'll do 3-way calls with you. I'll do whatever I can for you. And so she signed up underneath her and then fell out of the business for 3 years, called the company and told them to put that, she wanted to re-sign up and to put her underneath me. So I think if you always do the right thing and you do the thing that's the most ethical, and really, you know, not just shun them once they go with somebody else, but be their friend and be that example of that this world is huge and there's lots of people that you can get as reps. So, I mean, you want to be that rep that is going to be in integrity. And so it happens whether you're in your town or cross lines. You know, I have customers in every state, I think, and several countries. So there's bound to be people, except for one experience. I ended up talking to somebody in France, and she was going to be a rep. I sent her a box of samples that cost me like $60 back then. And she called me back and said, there's a lot of girls here doing it. I'm just going to go with them. So you'll have those experiences that suck and not are fun to hear. But in the long run, if you keep sharing and going with your gut and sharing with other people, you'll be okay. It's just how many people you talk to on a daily basis. Really, it's all about that.
So right. So true, Alita. It's not always going to go your way, right? It just isn't. And sometimes you lose one. I had a gal, one of the first 3 people I talked with, and then she just kind of wasn't interested. And I shared just a little bit, but not that much. I kind of let it go. I let her odd excuse of what she was saying. She wasn't interested. I just kind of let it go. And then years later, she became a partner on somebody else's team. And she was like, I know you first shared with me, but this person is local. So they did business together. That upline ended up quitting the business. And like all along, she could have been underneath me and we would have had so much fun. So it's sad when those happen, but like they get to decide that there's no choice, you know, it's not on our end. So just making it as much of a positive experience as we can for people is the most important thing. The other thing I thought of, guys, is, you know, don't always rely on the national marketing directors in your team. In your area, like just thinking, oh, the leaders will lead that. You know, I do events because I'm doing my own events. I'm building my own business, and then I invite my team to join in. That really should be the same thought process, all of us doing our own events and inviting other people to come in, not just always waiting for somebody else to do the event and then you just join in with them. And I'm not talking to my team local. You guys are great because you're excellent helpers. Don't stop coming because I need your help and we work really well together. But I'm just saying, if you're just always going to somebody else's house, even if somebody has this great, beautiful, big house and you're like, yeah, but their house is awesome, so mine is smaller, like I don't want to host. No, do the right thing, host it your own, invite other people to join in. You don't have to invite the whole co-op to join, but just really doing your own event is going to move your business forward anyway, and then tapping into those other events at some point. But just kind of always relying on the leaders in that community to do the events is only going to take you so far. One, because you have to wait for an event that they create that works on their time schedule. It might not be the best day for you, right? And it may not be the best timing for you to invite. If you do your own event, it's always on your best timing, your best day. So I think that's one of the best reasons to do your event yourself. Thank you, Alita, for sharing that. Anyone else want to jump in before we end this?
I'll hop in. I could talk for 30 minutes just on the examples, but I think you and a few of the other people did such a great job really talking about how I think setting the expectations, there's people, when I moved to Georgia, there's a lady under Amy Getz' team that we've worked together closely. We did a farmer's market. She would take 1 week, I would take another. And those people at farmers markets, like they'll come to your table, right, talk to you, but they're not ready. And they may do that a couple of times. And so, but we viewed it as only if I had gotten their information. Like they could have come and taken my samples 3 weeks in a row, but then all of a sudden, if they never gave me their name to follow up, you know what I mean? Like, so we worked it really well. I actually went to her house, helped her with sourdough because she didn't know how to do sourdough. But like you said, I was able to invite 2 or 3 people, even though it was, for her thing. We've made that really work. But on the opposite, there's a national marketing director in my area that what's so funny is she's been a national marketing director for years. And I showed up at one of the networking breakfasts a couple of times, and she felt very threatened by me a couple of times. And it was a very negative experience, but I was like, Karen, take the high road. You could totally be a Karen, but take the high road. And what's interesting is I had people that saw that because I was like, this is a reflection on the company. And that's what I do not want outside people to see. They do not need to see that, oh gosh, this is how people in their community work. That's not how people in our community work. Are there going to be a couple of stinkers? Yeah, when you have thousands of people, there might be a couple of stinkers, still better than corporate America. But what's interesting is I ended up getting a couple of orders because I think that the people ended up, seeing, they could still feel that interaction, and they came to me, like they apologized, the people that were leaders in the group. And so even if somebody else isn't taking the high road, you taking the high road, I think is always going to end well. So.
Right. Anytime you're on the defense, someone's going to notice that. Like the energy changed, right? With that reaction.
Oh my gosh. The energy got really, it was awkward. And I just kind of, like me, it's easy for me to start joking around about something and kind of keep it light. But when I left, I was like, I'm sure my blood pressure was like through the roof, but.
Yeah. Yeah. So perfect way to end that. The energy in the room makes a difference. The energy that we bring, the energy in the way we respond. How much different if that lady would have said, oh my gosh, Karen, I'm so glad you're here. We could do some great things together. I want you to meet my friend, and just share your story. And she could have used you as the amener. Like, how beautiful would that have been? So yeah, always check our egos at the door, because open hands, open hearts, one team, one mission. We're thankful for each other. We're thankful for what we have. We want to work together. We're on a mission to inspire healthy living around the world. It's going to take all of us as an army to get that done. And we just want to make sure we're keeping that positive. Randy, you're unmuted. Did you want to add anything before we end?
No, except that I have really enjoyed what the other ladies have had to say. I'm sorry, I got on here late and I never muted, so I'm sorry.
No problem. Sorry, didn't mean to call you out like that. Thank you, Randy. All right, everyone, I hope you have a great day and a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Stacy. Have a
You're
great day.
welcome.